Hello, okay, for those of you returning to the channel, welcome back, and for those of you that are new here, that have just stumbled upon this video, then thank you for joining me, and welcome to my review, my spoiler-filled review of the first episode of Alien Earth, titled Neverland, written and directed by Noah Hawley being the creator and showrunner of Alien Earth. And for those of you that are new here, I've already been on a bit of a journey when it comes to Alien Earth, you could say. I'm a massive fan of the Alien franchise, and I've never totally been on board with the idea of Alien coming to Earth, because I just feel like it diminishes the sort of the power behind the Ellen Ripley story. But as we've had new trailers and interviews and all of that from the creator, I've definitely warmed to the idea of what they are potentially exploring with this show. So the first 2 episodes dropped on Wednesday night. I'll also do a review for episode 2 in a separate video, but I thought I would just talk about the very first episode here and what it is that I liked, maybe things that I didn't like. So the episode opens with some text, and it is text that is in the very kind of familiar design and look, and even right down to the sound design, in the way in which this text appears. It's very familiar to us hardcore, Alien fans. It immediately sucks me back into the world of Alien. And it is text that kind of explains to us where they're at right now in regards to synths and technologies, you could say. So for example, you've got synthetics or artificial beings, which we're already aware of from within the Alien universe. You've also got cyborgs, which are augmented humans enhanced with synthetic elements. And then you've got the hybrids, which is where you've got the human consciousness transferred over to a synthetic. And this aspect of the story, with the human consciousness being transferred over to a synth, is one of those aspects of the story that kind of really intrigued me about this. And it kind of reminded me of the elements that I liked in regards to Prometheus and an Alien Covenant around the story of David. So I was quite intrigued by that aspect. And then that leads us into sort of the opening, where it reveals the title of Alien Earth, very much just like the Alien opens, the original Alien movie, where the title sort of slowly reveals itself, exactly the same. And you've got some really nice shots where the music just swells, and we're sort of thrown right into sort of the ship and introductions to the crew of this deep space research vessel. And this entire moment, just the way in which it plays out, to sort of us, witnessing this crew wake up out of cryosleep and sort of talking, and sort of the dynamic between the crew and all of that, it felt straight out of that original 1979 movie Alien, just from sort of the cinematography and just how everything is constructed within this moment. It felt very authentic. And for me, they achieved what they did with Alien Romulus. And that is, as a lifelong fan of this franchise, they transported me back into this world that felt natural, that felt organic. And I think they did a really good job at capturing the look and feel of that original movie. But I did have an issue with this particular moment. And it's not major, but I think it could have been done perhaps in a slightly different way. It's when they discuss these different corporations and sort of, who rules what, whether it be Earth, Mars, the Moon, and all of that. The way in which that's kind of explored or sort of explained did feel a little bit, and it didn't feel quite natural. The dialogue in these moments, when it came to explaining sort of, these different corporations and who ruled what and who controlled which sector and all of that, that did feel a little bit exposition kind of heavy in the way. It was a bit more clunky, if anything. Like, you do need these moments. You do need these kind of exposition, sort of, moments of dialogue where it does explain where we're at the minute within the universe. But for me, it didn't quite feel natural. Like, it was a little bit too sort of heavy-handed in that moment. But it wasn't a major issue for me. And it's in these opening moments on board this deep space research vessel that we get our first glimpses of the specimens that they've collected, and they allude to having lost a lot of the crew to just get these specimens. And, you know, this is something that I liked. It's quite intriguing because you don't, you know, it makes you wonder what actually, how did they go about getting these specimens? And it does make me wonder if we are going to see more of their mission when it comes to sort of how they got those specimens, maybe. And then when it comes to sort of hell breaking loose on the ship, you see glimpses of it, and it just alludes to why the chaos on this ship is erupting. Like, you sort of get, you know, there's quick shots here and there of different characters doing different things, but it never kind of directly tells you, it just alludes to it. And there's an aspect of that I liked, but I also kind of wanted to see more of kind of the shit hitting the fan and sort of the horror being unleashed on this ship. But instead, we kind of get these quick images and shots, which, again, it just reminded me a lot of, you know, it just took me back to those original Alien movies, especially when it comes to the sound design, the score. There were a lot of elements of the score within this episode, specifically the opening, say, 5 to 10 minutes, which reminded me an awful lot of Elliot Goldenfel's score for Alien 3, one of my favourite scores. And you get elements, I felt, of Alien 3 here that I really liked, even when it came to sort of the opening scene. You know, there's moments within this first episode that kind of reminded me of the opening moments of Alien 3, where you got the credits and you kind of got glimpses of what's happening on the USS Sulaco with the alien egg and, you know, Ripley in sort of the cryotube. Very, very similar, yeah. And it felt intentional because it was, again, it took me straight back to Alien 3. And by the way, you know, Alien 3, I'm a massive fan of Alien 3. There's a lot of aspects from that movie, from a technical perspective and visually and with the score, that I really dug. And I think there's a lot of that a lot of those elements that I liked about Alien 3 are kind of sort of pulled into this show, yeah. And I really appreciated that. Maybe it wasn't intentional, I don't know, but the definitely the sort of the first 5 to 10 minutes of this show reminded me of moments from Alien 3, whatever it be from a technical perspective or visual. But that's just something that I really liked about this show so far within the first episode was it, and this was one of the things that I was concerned by, especially when it came to being a TV show, was would it feel authentic to those original movies, specifically Alien and Aliens? And I think it does a really good job at it. Like, I loved seeing them. Like, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here now, but I loved seeing sort of this rescue team, once the ship has crashed, they sort of get into these vehicles that, again, felt like they were sort of ripped straight from Aliens, you know, and they sort of really do a good job at capturing the same design and aesthetic. And at the same time, for a TV show, it looked really impressive. Like, it felt like a world where our characters are actually there within. And especially when we follow the rescue team going into these towers and then sort of going into the ship, and just sort of the use of, you know, actual sets and practical effects. Like, it's just beautifully done, beautifully brought to life. And, you know, even with the alien itself, you know, it's a guy in a suit, a very, very little CGI. Like, I don't know where the CGI was. All I could see was practical. And as a result, you know, it adds to the immersion, it adds to the weight, it adds to the horror. And just like they did with Alien Romulus, this is something that I appreciated a hell of a lot, because it just adds to the whole sort of authenticity and impact of what is happening. What I will say, touching on the alien there, we don't get as much of the xenomorph in the first episode as we do in the second episode, which I'm really looking forward to talking about. But I do have a minor gripe with this xenomorph. Like, it looks great. I just love sort of that first reveal of the xenomorph behind the door once it's killed that crew member. and just the way in which, you know, you sort of slowly see the dome appear in front of the window and all of that. It was very Ridley Scott and Alien, and it's done very, very well. I really, really liked it. And in that moment, you also get a good idea or sort of understanding of kind of the power behind the xenomorph and just the way in which it rips through the door. And just, I kind of loved how this moment played out with the character of Morrow. I think that's how you pronounce the name. And he's this cyborg, and just kind of how calm he remains, you know, while you've got this monster, the beast, you know, breaking its way through the door, and you could feel the intensity of that. At the same time, you've also got the calmness of this cyborg Morrow as he's sort of conducting his mission, or securing the mission, you could say, because he's got his mission. And I just love how he sort of goes into this kind of safety room, and just as the door closes, the drool of the xenomorph sort of just falls on him, and I just love that entire moment. But sort of going back to the xenomorph, I do feel like we needed a little bit more slime. I think the alien in this show just needs a little bit more KY jelly thrown on it, I think. That's the only thing that kind of really stood out to me about the overall look and design of the xenomorph in this episode, and that is not enough slime. Maybe that's just me, I don't know. And then back down on Earth, we're introduced to the CEO of the Prodigy Corporation. And this is the first time that we have heard of this corporation, I believe, within the Alien universe. And the CEO is Boyd Cavalier, and he's kind of like really the Peter Pan, you could say. And this is where we get a lot of the kind of the drawing of references and inspiration really from the story of Peter Pan. And this is another aspect that I think within this first episode and going into the second episode really worked very, very well. I like how they've kind of infused sort of elements of the story of Peter Pan and its themes within the story here within Alien Earth, and at the moment I'm really liking it. It's got me really intrigued, and I just like that kind of the contrast that's created between sort of the animated, you know, Peter Pan, the Disney animated Peter Pan, and sort of the more kind of darker original material of Peter Pan, and sort of the horror of Alien, and how they are sort of coming together here to create something that feels different but also kind of heightens the horror as well. And you know, just how you've got these children, these children with these terminal illnesses, and how they sort of, you know, they transfer their consciousness to these other bodies, these synthetic bodies, and then they are sent into sort of hell, you could say. There's a sort of sense of uneasiness created. I also feel like they did a very good job at kind of showing us, you know, and sort of, you know, getting us on board really with kind of that more science fiction element, you could say, with the sort of the transferring of consciousness over to a synthetic body. That aspect of the story, I think, is done very, very well, just from more so like from a visual perspective. And I just feel like it could have easily have been done in a way where it wouldn't have worked, or it wouldn't have felt natural or grounded enough really to sort of really buy into it. But I feel like the way they do it here, and how sort of the old kind of, you know, the Peter Pan story really, and how that is kind of heavily infused within the story of these characters, I think is why it kind of really worked for me. And I was just really impressed in how, you know, it's just over an hour long, and I feel like the episode is very well constructed in what they do show us and what they do explain to us. Like, there's a lot that they are introducing us to within this episode, but when it comes to pace and just how everything kind of plays out and how the narrative is constructed, it never once feels like it is condensed to the point where we are missing something. Yeah, it alludes to a lot. Like, don't get me wrong, I would have loved to have seen the shit hit the fan on that deep space, you know, research vessel as it crashes into Earth. I would have loved to have seen more of what went on aboard that ship during that moment. I have got a feeling that we might get more glimpses and more insight into what happened, maybe. I could be completely wrong. But at the same time, I just feel like as a first episode, when it comes to sort of introducing us and sort of immersing us into this new story and into this world, it's very well done. And I just think the show looks great. There's some impressive moments visually that I really, really liked. And I loved the performances from all of the cast. I think the cast all give really kind of great, authentic, natural performances. And that's from everyone. Even like the kind of the minor characters, whatever it be, you know, some of the rescue team. And I think a lot of it's just down again to the way in which these moments are brought to life. But the performances all around are really, really solid. And the standout for me was Sydney Chandler as Wendy, this first hybrid where she's, you know, the consciousness of this 11-year-old girl has been transferred over into this body. And I thought her performance here was captivating. Like, just watching her bring this synthetic alive. Like, it was a good blend of robot or synthetic and human, and it never once sort of was too human. Like, it was just the right balance to sort of allow me to kind of always believe that this was a synthetic with a human consciousness inside of it. And I think she did a very good job through her performance in bringing that aspect to life. In a way, like I said, I just found it to be very mesmerising to watch when she was on the screen. And there was a little quirks here and there in how she would sort of say certain things and that. But then at the same time, you would see a glimpse of humanity. And that is something that I think she does a very good job at in her performance. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how her character evolves through the show. You've also then got an Alex Laufer, I think that's how you pronounce the name, apologies if it's incorrect, as Joseph Hermit, the brother of Wendy, and he's part of this rescue team that goes into the towers. And what we learn is that Hermit, you know, the brother of Wendy, he believes that his sister had died. He's not aware that the consciousness of his sister was actually transferred over into this synth body. So another interesting aspect or element to the story that I found to be very intriguing, but just another performance as well that kind of just allows you to buy into the horror of what is happening. And you've also got Timothy Oliphant, who I absolutely love as an actor anyway, and he plays Kirsch, the Prodigy Corporation synthetic chief scientist, who also serves as Wendy's mentor and trainer. And there is something incredibly creepy about his performance in this first episode specifically. And there are certain moments when he's talking to Wendy for the first time after she's had this consciousness transferred over, and there's just something about how he handles his character. Again, just like with the actress who's bringing Wendy to life, I just found something very kind of mesmerising and captivating by how they're bringing their performances to life, and in a way that kind of feels authentic. And it fits right in, sort of within the world of Alien. Timothy Oliphant, I think, is also doing a really great job here at bringing this character to life. And also kind of alluding to maybe there is something more going on sort of under the surface. I think, especially when we get to episode 2, which I'll talk about a little bit more when I do my review for episode 2. I think, again, there's so much set up within this first episode that's done in a way that it's not overcrowded, but it's also giving you it's sort of sowing the seeds for all these kind of different, possibilities and sort of directions in which, and sort of ideas and potentially where, the motivations of certain characters and all of that. There is so much sort of being done. At the same time, the show, the first episode never once feels like it's been, condensed to the point where there was just too much in it. It's done in a way that's very clever and very smart, and a lot of that is done through the writing, but it's also aided by its performances, I felt. And there is something very kind of Blade Runner about this as well, and of stories like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and all of that. And it's quite funny because I've always thought that Ridley Scott's Blade Runner and Alien could easily sort of just fit within the same universe, and I kind of like how we are kind of getting that year with Alien Earth. And so yeah, as a first episode, I'm on board. I'm really intrigued by what Noah Hawley is doing here with this story. And I think, you know, some people may not get it, but I am getting kind of hints of, or elements of kind of what Ridley Scott was maybe attempted to do with the character of David in Prometheus and specifically Covenant. I just love how that kind of the Peter Pan and how he's using that kind of, you know, the story of Peter Pan in many ways to kind of really sort of not only aid in sort of the themes that they are going to explore potentially with these characters, but also that kind of the contrast between innocence and sort of horror and sort of, you know, whatever that be from the perspective of the corporation, Weyland-Yutani, or Prodigy, or the alien itself. And I just, yes, I am very, very intrigued and I am on board. But look, this is early days, this is just the first episode. You know, episode 1 of 8. I did watch episode 2 straight after. I completely forgot that they were releasing the 2 episodes, but I will do a separate review, separate video for that particular episode. There was a lot that I liked in that episode that I'm really looking forward to talking about. But yeah, I've kind of rambled on as I usually do here, and I've gone off in sort of different tangents here and there. A really strong start for Alien Earth. I really liked this first episode, and it's got me on board. You know, the writing is incredibly clever, I feel. It's very tight, it's smart. It doesn't always work, like I said, going back to the beginning, where it is just a little bit too exposition-y in regards to sort of how they're explaining sort of the mechanics of the corporations and all of that. But as a whole, it does a really good job at setting up these characters' stories and sort of introducing us into this new story with these new elements, this kind of the exploration really into these science fiction elements within the story. I just think is done very, very well, especially for, you know, for it to be all sort of condensed down into just an hour. I think Noah Hawley does a great job of that. So yeah, they are my thoughts on Neverland, the first episode of Alien Earth, and I will be giving Neverland my thoughts on episode 1 of Alien Earth, Neverland. But what do you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you a little bit, you know, not sure yet of how you feel? Then let me know below and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to watch future movie and TV reviews from just some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. Coming up next will be my review of episode 2, Mr. October, as well as new cinema releases this weekend here in the UK, which will be Nobody 2 and Together. Not sure which one I'm going to watch yet. I'm looking forward to the both of them. And yeah, just another massive thank you to everyone that's connecting to the channel, wherever you be liking, subscribing. It means the world to me. It will always overwhelm me that so many of you do want to follow just some random Welsh geek ramble on about film and TV. So yeah, that's it from me for now. Thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll be catching you guys soon.